this. It's one of the most controversial food additives in the world. Every country has their say on it. Every person has their say on it. Some people say it's really good for you. Some people say it's so bad for you that it can be detrimental to your health. What am I talking about? I'm talking about MSG. That's right, monosodium glutamate, the most controversial food additive. And that is why I thought I would look into the good, the bad, and the ugly side of it. That's exactly what I'm going to be talking about in today's episode. I'm going to go into what it actually is, the history of it. Then I'm going to talk about the good, bad, and ugly side of it. And then 5 tips how you can avoid it if that is something that you're wanting to do. Let's get into today's episode. It's Mondays with Mihaela. That's right, me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I absolutely love, and appreciate your support. Today's topic is such an interesting one. If this is your first time here, my name is Mihaela. I'm a qualified naturopath, absolutely passionate about all things health, business, and overall success. And you're listening to the Natural Health Podcast, which is available here on YouTube, the video version. And then if you want the audio version, it is on Spotify, Google iTunes, Google Tunes, all those things. It's available for you to listen to. And that is what Mondays with Mihaela is about, sharing health hacks to optimize your health. And I thought this is an absolute huge one. It is very important for me to talk about MSG because that might be a health hack that is a missing link for you to reach optimal health. So let's get into today's topic. So today's topic is all about MSG. Like I said, sometimes what can happen to you is you may have experienced extra anxiety, extra OCD, nervousness, worry, overwhelm, dementia, Parkinson's, learning disabilities, autism, hyperactivity, any type of mood disorders, neurological disorders. This can be an effect of having an intake or over intake of MSG. And if this is something new to you, yes, food does affect us. It affects us personally, our mind, our physiology. It affects our biology at a deeper level, at a cellular level, right? That is not new to us. And that's why I thought I'll talk about MSG, because this food additive, oh my gosh, if you listen to the end of this podcast, you're going to be amazed as to where it is hiding and that you are exposed to more of it than you think. You may not be going to so-called MSG restaurants, but that doesn't mean you're not exposing yourself to this harmful additive. Or is it harmful? So let's look into what is MSG. MSG is short for monosodium glutamate, also known as a flavor enhancer. Sounds amazing. If something increases the flavor of my food, oh my gosh, I want all of it because I love food and I want it to taste amazing, right? That is the initial thought, and that is the thought that most people stop at because they put this food in their mouth, they get this amazing buzz, the neurotransmitters go off and they want more of it and more of it. And they eat more of it and then they get satisfied and it's an absolutely amazing feeling, right? But little do they know what it actually may be doing to their health. So chemically, MSG is a white crystallized powder that resembles table salt or sugar. It combines sodium glutamic acid, also known as sodium salt, right? So the additive is very popular in Asian cooking and is used for various processed foods in the West, which we'll go into detail and I'll explain to you where it is actually found, right? So where did it all start from? So the compound was first extracted by a Japanese chemist. I probably can't pronounce his name, but we'll give it a shot. Kikunae Ikeda in 1908. Yes, it is a very, very old additive. So he noticed that the addition of kombu, which is a type of eatable kelp, made his broth taste even better. So as a chemist, as you do when you're a chemist, you isolate the thing that makes it taste like that, right? So he isolated this crystal compound from the kombu and found that this glutamate was responsible for giving his broth this meaty, savory flavor that he absolutely loved, right? So he named this umami. Okay, it is now considered one of the 5 tastes that you can perceive when you eat something alongside salty, sweet, bitter, and sour. And then there's this umami flavor. Okay, so this is what this chemist came up about in 1908. And he's like, "Ooh, my food tastes absolutely amazing with this crystal stuff. I'm gonna put it in everywhere, right?" So when we look at it, so there is a difference between real food that is high in glutamate, because glutamate is found in food, and processed foods that contain MSG. Now, what is the difference? Let's look at it. So MSG versus glutamate, what is the difference, right? So glutamate, like I said, also known as glumatic acid, is an important amino acid found in many types of foods such as mushrooms, meat, fish, milk, and tomatoes. It has a natural flavoring enhancing property that can help enhance the taste of many natural dishes. And I'm pretty sure a lot of chemists or cooks and chefs will know about this, and that's why they use these foods for these flavorings, right? However, monosodium glutamate, which is MSG, on the other hand, is defined as the sodium salt of glutamatic acid. Initially discovered in 1908, which I said from that chemist, MSG is a product often used in many foods today that's processed in a fermentation process. So the main difference between glutamate and MSG is the way that they process that this is processed in your body. So glutamate is processed in your body completely different compared to MSG, the way it's processed in your body. Okay, and it's what a lot of people get confused and go, oh, MSG is not bad for us at all because it's found in food. It's all good for us. It is not. And keep listening. I'm so excited to share this with you. The glutamate found in food is typically attached to a long chain of other amino acids, right? Because it's naturally found. So when you eat it, your body breaks down slowly and is able to closely regulate the amount you take in. And this may have a genetic factor in it too, but we'll get into that. So what happens there is because it has the addition of the long chain of other amino acids, it breaks it down slowly. Your body is able to regulate it better, right? In a much more effective way. Excess amounts can simply be excreted through the waste to prevent toxicity, such as our poo and pee and so forth, right? A detox system. However, MSG is produced using a concentrated form of glutamate that is isolated, meaning that is not attached to any other amino acids and can be broken down very quickly, that fast, right? This also means that it can raise levels of glutamate in the body much more rapidly, contributing to symptoms of sensitivity. For that reason, it is glutamate in food is generally not a concern for most people because it hasn't been really linked to the negative effects that MSG has, such as mushrooms, tomatoes, and so forth. There could be an issue for some individuals with some genetic different genes in their genetic makeup. However, it shouldn't really cause an issue because your body should be able to remove it, right? So MSG found in processed foods, however, has been associated with a long list, which I'm going to go into detail about some of that list of symptoms that can cause, including headaches and so forth, right? So the interesting thing is that the fear of MSG actually dates back to 1969 when this study blew my mind. I had a look at it and I was like, oh my gosh, wow. Okay, so what they did in this study, they injected large doses of isolated MSG, not glutamate, they found in foods. It's isolated MSG into newborn mice and it caused harmful neurological effects. Okay. Then, as adults, treated animals showed stunted skeletal development, marked obesity, and female sterility, so infertility. That to me is mind-blowing. And the thing that scares me the most is, listen to this part, right? Currently, the peak body for food safety in Australia and New Zealand, Food Standard Australia and New Zealand, known as FSANZ, considers still MSG safe and authorized it as a food additive as long as a food manufacturer only adds MSG to its product up to a certain limit. Their official stance is that the current studies have failed to determine a causal association between negative effects and MSG. Okay, interesting, right? Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going into this because this blew my mind, right? Glutamate in itself. So let's have a look at what our body does and how it processes it, okay? So essentially, let's not have a bad name on glutamate, right? Glutamate, let's not put a bad name on it, okay? Because glutamate can lead to energy in the body that can be used by the nervous system, by the immune system for energy. If you're under stress, it can be used in the immune system. But it actually needs to be converted from glutamate. It needs to become glutamine as to get the benefits, right? So it's actually converted into this pathway. So this pathway actually needs to work the way it's supposed to work. It cannot stay as glutamate, okay? Because glutamate is actually an excitatory neurotransmitter, right? So there are genetic pathways which make it less possible to remove glutamate out of the body, right? So when there is a defect in this pathway due to genetics, it can lead to an excess of glutamate, right? Which means then some individual may feel headaches, anxiety, neurological issues, and so forth, right? When there's a genetic defect within that pathway, right? However, I do want you to know that your genes are not your destiny. I'm not the person that said that. Your genes are not your destiny. So you can reduce that, right? You can increase that pathway, or you can assist another pathway to help that, and so forth. There's so many things you can do biologically to not just rely on your genes, right? I always say genes are a compartment of your health, but there's all of these other things that you can put into place to help your genes work that the way it's supposed to work, right? So such things as gut-based disorders are one of the major issues, right? So if you have a gut-based issue, such as a leaky gut or SIBO or FIBO, an imbalance of gut bacteria, what can actually happen is it can actually cause gut inflammation, which then actually impacts that pathway to put that glutamate into the good form of glutamate. So then the issue is not so much the absorption of glutamate, or it's not so much the genetic stuff, it's your gut inflammation, right? So many things to consider, right? In addition to that, high inflammatory diet, chronic stress can also lead to a breakdown of this pathway. This pathway can be affected by so many things, just mentioning a few, right? So your body needs to be flexible to be able to work properly and to be able to help this pathway work, right? As mentioned earlier, MSG is actually excitatory, right? So and the thing that I want you to understand, it is an unnatural flavor created in the lab that causes a desire for the taste to increase. It's added to food by these food agencies, by the big food people, right? They add it into food and hide it in our food. Don't just add it in our food, they hide it in our food to make you addicted to it. So then sales go up and sales continue going. So do you see what that's doing? Is that beneficial for your health, or is that beneficial for the bottom dollar of that company? I want you to have a think about that, right? So the thing that I also found is a study I know it's a bit of an old study, but it's important to look at these things. In 1994, it's titled Neurotoxicity Excited Toxins in Food. So this is what it says, in quotation marks, right? Evidence is reviewed pertaining to excitatory neurotoxins encountered in human food supply. The most frequently encountered food excitotoxin is glutamate, which is commercially added to many foods despite evidence that it can freely penetrate certain brain regions and rapidly destroy neurons by hyperacting the NMDA subtype of the glutamate GLUT receptors. That just says clearly that it can penetrate certain brain regions and rapidly destroy neurons. So if you're taking MSG in your body, you are assisting with rapidly destroying neurons. Do you want to rapidly destroy your neurons? I know that I want my neurons to be on point, so I'm able to do these podcasts, so I'm able to give back to the world, so I'm able to be the best practitioner I can be, because I want my neurons to be on point. I want to be on point. I don't want my neurons gone just because this food tastes amazing. I'm not going to eat this food for my neurons to just go then. Doesn't make any sense. All right. Let's get into the next topic, right? The good, bad, and ugly side of MSG, okay? I did title this The Good and the Bad and the Ugly Side of MSG, so I guess I have to put the good side of MSG in it. So here it is. Here comes the good side. The good side of MSG is really interesting because it's also controversial, right? So if you actually put MSG, monosodium glutamate or glutamate, it returns over 8,000 results on PubMed database with articles stretching back to 1948. So much research has been done on it, right? So the good side of MSG is that it enhances the flavor of food, okay? Which, yes, it can be very good for some individuals and tastes yummy. I guess that's one side of it. The other side it means that you are less likely to put more salt in your food, right? So the less salt you put in your food, because salt has been, if you're over table salt, has been contributed to heart disease and so forth, which means then these researchers are saying, because we're putting MSG in there, we're using less salt, which means we're actually, reducing heart disease and so forth. That could be argued, but that is kind of like the good side of MSG, right? Let's get now into the bad and the ugly, which stresses me out. Researching for this stressed me out. I know it shouldn't, but it did. So let's look into the bad and the ugly side of MSG. Number one is MSG headaches, okay? I don't know if you're prone to headaches or if you get migraines, but MSG can be a contributor to this. And the reason why is, right? So one study actually showed that MSG triggered side effects in many people with reported sensitivity to MSG, causing symptoms like muscle tightness, numbness and tingling, weakness, flushing, and the well-known MSG headaches. This is what one of the study looked at, right? So the presence of MSG in food may be difficult to detect since the term natural flavoring or hydrolyzed protein, vegetable protein, which I'll talk about later, where you can find the hidden MSGs, may appear on food labels to refer to MSG, right? So HVP, which is hydrolyzed vegetable protein, contains 10 to 30% MSG. Case studies are presented in which the elimination of all food sources of MSG resulted in a decrease of headache frequency. Crazy, yeah? So I will be able to help you find out where MSG is found if you keep listening to the end of it, right? So although researchers are not entirely certain what causes MSG sensitivity, they have put a theory across that eating large amounts can cause small amounts of glutamate to cross the blood-brain barrier, interact with the neurons to cause swelling and cell death. Oh my gosh. Swelling and cell death. So this food is going to cause cell death. Why would I put it in my mouth? Why would I? Second one, free radical formation. Some animal models and in vitro studies have shown that consuming large amounts of monosodium glutamate, MSG, could cause oxidative damage to the cells and contribute to free radical formation. Okay, for example, one animal model published in the Journal of Cardiovascular Disease Research showed that feeding rats very high doses of MSG increased the level of several markers of oxidative stress in the heart tissue. That is crazy, okay? So, and this is tied to a number of diseases, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and so forth. Oh my gosh, that blows my mind. Number 3, blood pressure. If you suffer from blood pressure or, you may have blood pressure issues. In a 2015 study published in a journal Nutrition, researchers found that consuming high amounts of MSG resulted in significant increase in both systolic and diastolic blood pressure. Okay, it increases your blood pressure. Of course it does. It's an excitatory neurotransmitter. Of course it's going to increase our blood pressure. Similarly, another study concluded by the Juansong Provincial Center of Disease Control and Prevention showed that MSG intake was associated with higher levels of blood pressure over a 5-year period in Chinese adults. And the reason I've probably done this study in Chinese adults is because a lot of MSG is found in Chinese foods and they use it in their cooking. Number 4 is asthma. If you have asthma, MSG is one thing to stay away from. This is not medical advice. This is just from the research that I've done. I'm providing information to you, okay? Some studies have found that MSG intake could be linked to higher risk of asthma attacks in those at risk. A published study in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology tested effects of 500 milligrams of MSG in 32 people with asthma found that a shocking 40% of participants experienced a worsening of asthma symptoms within 12 hours of ingesting MSG. Such a short period, 12 hours. Some food sensitivities don't come up until 3 days after, and this is in 12 hours. Not only that, but nearly half of those who have experienced a reaction also reported side effects associated with the Chinese restaurant syndrome, such as headaches, numbness, and flushing. This concerns me, okay? This concerns me. So regardless of whether or not you have a sensitivity to MSG, monosodium glutamate, the isolated form, it shouldn't be a regular part of your diet in my view, right? It's because it's found primarily in major processed foods. And what am I all about? whole foods, not processed foods. So MSG is found in processed foods. So even if you're not even sensitive, or even if you don't have asthma, you're not really concerned about your blood pressure, you're not really concerned about cell death of your neurons, you're not really concerned about any of those swelling of your brain. I mean, if you're not really concerned about those things, you shouldn't probably have so much MSG anyway, because it's found in highly processed foods, right? So at the bottom line, what I'm trying to say is there is the good, the bad, and the ugly of MSG. It's had so many people fight in regards to, is it good, is it bad? I mean, look, Australia is allowing us to use it in our food as a food additive. I think Europe is a little bit more sensitive on that side, and they're only allowing a certain amount and so forth, and that it needs to be labeled. But the thing is after reading that and understanding what this does to my body, the question that I'll pose myself is, do I want to put this inside my body that it can potentially cause cell death, potentially cause inflammation, leaky gut, headaches, swelling to my brain, neuron cell death? Like, do I want to put that in my body? I know my answer is no, and I want to try and avoid it as much as possible. But the thing is avoiding it is not as easy as just saying, you know what, I'm not going to go eat Chinese, or you know what, I'm just going to buy no MSG products. It is not that easy, and this is where the controversy raises, right? This is where the controversy comes from, because avoiding MSG is kind of like avoiding, I don't know, it's just, you can't really avoid it unless you carry around a list of things where MSG can be found, and you literally are an MSG guru, okay? So I wanted to make it as easy as possible for you, okay? So I'm going to talk about now 5 tips on how you may be able to avoid MSG in taking that in your food, right? The number one thing is I wanted to talk about learn the numbers and the words that it's hidden under, because it causes this amazing flavor. What is it hidden under? And this blows my mind what it's hidden under. So the usual what it's hidden under, I've got a list over here, and I'm going to go through that. Glutamic acid, glutamate, monosodium glutamate, which is, of course it is written as that, but a lot of companies are actually not writing that on their products because MSG's got such a bad name, right? You can get it under E620, magnesium glutamate, calcium glutamate, yeast extract. That is an ingredient that always contains processed free glutamic acid. That is crazy. Every single product that I know, not that I know, but most products contain yeast extract. The other thing is anything hydrolyzed protein, calcium casein, sodium casein, yeast foods, yeast nutrients, brewer's yeast, gelatin, textured protein, soy protein, whey protein. These are things that always are going to have it, right? And there's another list that says that it often contains, and this is carnitine, stock, natural flavor, flavor of flavoring, maltodextrin, citric acid, E330, barley malt, protease, anything enzyme modified, anything containing enzyme, soy milk, soy sauce extract, protein fortified, fermented, seasonings, so forth. And then these are the ones that ingredients suspected of containing lesser amounts of MSG, still some, but lesser amounts. Cornstarch, corn syrup, modified food starch, lipolysed butter fat, dextrose, rice syrup, brown rice syrup, milk powder, reduced fat milk, skim milk 1%, 2%. Most things low fat or no fat. Isn't that a bit scary? Anything enriched or vitamin enriched. So that is a list that I found, and I'm going to be putting that list, linking it down there so you can have an access to it and you can read a bit about it. It's sources of processed free glutamic acid, MSG, right? Places where MSG is often hidden. So that's the number one tip on how you can avoid it, is by having a look at this list, right? The second one is, if you're going out and eating, ask a restaurant, as there is no requirement in Australia for restaurants or cafes to declare the presence of these additives. So the best thing is to actually get involved, ask the chef, ask the owner, do you use MSG in your cooking? A lot of places do, and they do not legally have to say that they do or don't, okay? The other one is check your seasoning blends, as most of your seasoning blends contain MSG, unfortunately. Check them out. Number 4 is look out for hydrolyzed vegetable protein. That is where it's found, as I've spoken on the list. Number 5 is start reading your labels. I'm a huge advocate about reading labels and understanding what are you eating, because consumers' favorites, like, you know, your favorite things such as Doritos, your chips and stuff like that, they contain MSG. They taste amazing because they contain MSG. Can you make your own chips? Of course you can. Can you do that at home without MSG? Of course you can. So the thing is these are the 5 tips on how you may be able to avoid MSG in your food. And the reasons, as I stated above, there are a number of reasons why you should probably avoid it. I mean, your health, you take it in your own hands. I'm here to provide you information only that you can take and educate you. But essentially, the thing for me is if something is going to cause cell death, the potential of cell death, I want to minimize it or even remove it out of my diet, okay? I read my food labels. I still probably have things that have MSG in it in my cupboard, but I try my best. That is what it's all about. It's all about eating a whole foods diet and trying to do your best to eat as healthy as possible, because you need those brain cells to be on point for you to be an amazing business professional, for you to be an amazing mother, for you to be an amazing father, for you to be an amazing business person, to be an amazing whoever you are. You need your brain cells, right? You don't want, when you're 60, 70, 80, 90, to then look back and go, ooh, maybe it was all that MSG I ate that's caused me this Alzheimer's, this dementia. Okay, so there you have it. The thing that I wanted to get across to you is the good, the bad, and ugly of MSG. I hope I did. I hope that I got that across to you. I hope that you're educated and you know a little bit about it. So this is what the Natural Health Podcast is all about. Rate, review, like, share this with anyone that you're concerned about and want to share this information with, because if you know someone who would benefit from this episode, you need to share it with them, because they're going to be thankful that you have changed their life. It's about, empowering each other, because there's only so much I can do and the rest is in your hands. Do what you do best. Love, like, share, subscribe, rate, do what you do best. Until next Monday, love you.